The arrival of Mrs. Martin's grand chandelier sparkled in the lobby of the prestigious Royal Oaks Hotel, casting a warm, golden hue across the room. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and the air smelled faintly of fresh flowers and the rich aroma of espresso from the hotel's cafe. It was an evening like any other at the five-star hotel, where high-profile guests mingled with corporate elites, all expecting nothing short of perfection. Olivia Wright, the hotel manager, stood at the front desk, her back straight and posture impeccable. She was a woman in her mid-30s, confident in her role and comfortable in her position. Olivia had worked her way up the ladder over the years, starting as a front desk agent and moving up to become one of the youngest managers in the hotel's history. She was known for her keen attention to detail, her ability to anticipate guests' needs, and most importantly, her calm demeanor in stressful situations. Tonight, however, was about to test her skills like never before. "Good evening, Ms. Wright," greeted Daniel, one of the hotel's bellhops, as he walked past with a stack of luggage. "I see the usual crowd is coming in tonight." Another busy evening. Olivia smiled briefly, adjusting the color of her crisp white blouse. "Yes, it seems like it," she replied, keeping her tone professional. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly 7:30 p.m., and the dinner rush had started. A wave of guests had just checked in, and the lobby was starting to fill with the hum of voices. Most guests were courteous, understanding that this was a high-end establishment where top-tier service was expected. The hotel had been running smoothly all evening, with only a few minor hiccups that Olivia quickly addressed. As a seasoned manager, she prided herself on handling customer concerns efficiently and without drama. But there was one guest who always caused Olivia to brace herself: Mrs. Helena Martin. Mrs. Martin, a woman in her late 40s, had stayed at Royal Oaks many times before. While she was a valued, repeat customer, she was known for her high expectations. And it wasn't just about the luxury amenities. No, Mrs. Martin demanded perfection in every detail, from the room temperature to the arrangement of the flowers in her suite. There was no room for error when it came to her. Olivia had handled many difficult guests in her career, but Helena Martin was different. She had a reputation that extended beyond just the Royal Oaks. Helena was a prominent figure in the city's elite circles, known not only for her wealth, but also for her connections in both the business world and social scene. She was influential, and Olivia had learned early on that if Mrs. Martin wasn't happy, it wasn't just a matter of offering a free meal. It could mean a significant loss for the hotel's reputation. When Mrs. Martin arrived that evening, she did so with the kind of confident stride that commanded attention. Her skin was a rich dark brown, and her face was marked with subtle elegance, well-groomed hair, a perfectly applied shade of lipstick, and an aura of unapproachable authority. She stood in the lobby for a moment, surveying her surroundings, before her sharp eyes landed on Olivia. "Ms. Wright," Mrs. Martin called, her voice smooth, but with an undertone of sharpness. "I hope everything is in order for my stay. I expect nothing less than the best, as always." Olivia's smile didn't falter as she stepped forward, offering her hand. "Welcome back, Mrs. Martin. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Your suite is ready, and everything has been prepared just as you requested." As Olivia handed over the key card, Mrs. Martin didn't immediately take it. Instead, she gave Olivia a lingering look, as if weighing her response. "I trust you haven't made any mistakes with my reservation," she said, her voice lowering just enough for Olivia to sense the slight challenge in her tone. "I specifically requested a room with a view of the skyline, not one overlooking the parking lot. I've had this room view before, and frankly, I won't settle for less than what I requested." Olivia's heart sank slightly, but she maintained her calm. "Mrs. Martin, let me check right away. I'm certain everything is as you requested, but I'll verify the details for you." She quickly turned to the reservation system behind the desk, her fingers flying over the keys. As she checked the details, a sinking feeling began to build in her stomach. The room Mrs. Martin had requested, a suite with a view of the city skyline had been double booked due to an unexpected influx of guests for a corporate event. There was no immediate solution. Olivia took a deep breath and turned back to Mrs. Martin with a polite smile, hiding the anxiety that was creeping in. "I do apologize, Mrs. Martin. It seems that there was a mix-up in our system. The room with the skyline view has unfortunately been taken by another guest. However, we do have several suites available, and I'd be happy to offer you an upgraded suite with additional amenities and a complimentary spa treatment tomorrow." Mrs. Martin's expression hardened, her lips curling into a tight smile. "I don't want a spa treatment, Ms. Wright. I didn't come here for your upgrades. I came here for the room I specifically booked, the room I expect. And frankly, I'm very disappointed by your failure to meet my expectations." Her tone was calm, with an unmistakable edge. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she glanced around the lobby, the noise of the crowd and the soft music from the lounge now feeling oppressive in Olivia's ears. Olivia knew she had to fix this. She quickly scanned the hotel's booking system again, realizing that she had no way of offering Mrs. Martin the exact room she wanted for that night. "I understand your frustration, Mrs. Martin," Olivia began, trying to regain control of the situation. "I take full responsibility for this oversight, and I assure you we will make it right. I will personally ensure that your stay is as comfortable as possible. We'll provide you with a suite that meets your expectations." Mrs. Martin crossed her arms, her eyes still fixed on Olivia. "I expect more than just comfortable, Ms. Wright. I expect perfection. You'll need to do more than apologize. I want you to take this seriously, or I'll be forced to reconsider my choice of hotel for the future." Olivia's mind raced. She could feel the pressure mounting. She knew that one misstep could result in losing a valued guest and, potentially, her job. But how could she fix this? "Let me see if I can find a better solution for you, Mrs. Martin. I'll make sure it's handled right away," Olivia said, trying to sound as confident as possible. Mrs. Martin's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer before she sighed. "Very well, but I'm not happy about this. I'll give you one last chance." Olivia nodded, watching as Mrs. Martin turned away, her daughter, a young girl of about 7, trailing behind her. Olivia felt a knot tighten in her chest. This was her chance to show that she could handle any challenge. But what Olivia didn't know yet was that this would not be an ordinary confrontation. It would be the beginning of a series of events that would test not only her patience, but also her career. The escalation. Olivia moved quickly to the back office, where she could access the hotel's internal systems and try to find a solution to Mrs. Martin's complaint. Her mind was racing. How could she make this right? Mrs. Martin was not just a regular guest. She was a well-known figure in the city, with powerful connections and the potential to bring in high-profile business for the hotel. If Olivia couldn't resolve this quickly and to Mrs. Martin's satisfaction, the consequences could be severe. As she sat down at her desk, Olivia immediately pulled up the room assignments. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she scanned the availability for the rest of the night. She knew there was no way she could offer a city view suite for Mrs. Martin without moving someone else, and she wasn't sure if she could justify the inconvenience to another guest. She knew that if she were to ask any other guest to change rooms, she would need to offer them something significant in return: a free night, additional services, and possibly a public apology. That would be a delicate dance. She took a deep breath, realizing how dire the situation was. Every minute that passed meant a higher risk of the situation escalating, and she couldn't afford that. After checking the booking system again, Olivia noticed a small discrepancy in one of the recent bookings. A guest had reserved a suite for a single night, but had requested a late checkout. This could be her opportunity. The room was exactly what Mrs. Martin had requested, and it was still available for a few hours. With a little finesse, she could resolve the issue without causing too much disruption, but it was going to require a delicate conversation with the guest. Olivia grabbed the phone and dialed the number for the guest. She had done this countless times before, offering complimentary services to persuade guests to change rooms. without much hassle. But today, there was a tightness in her chest, a feeling she couldn't shake. The pressure was too great. The phone rang for a few moments before a cheerful voice answered. "Hello, good evening, Mr. Clark." Olivia began, keeping her voice calm and professional. "I hope you're enjoying your stay with us so far. I'm calling because we have a minor adjustment to your reservation that I'd like to discuss." A pause on the other end. "Oh, is something wrong with the room?" "Not at all," Olivia replied quickly, not wanting to give him cause for concern. "In fact, we have an upgraded suite available with a view of the city skyline. It's the room that you requested when you made your reservation, and I wanted to offer you the opportunity to switch to it. Should you be interested, we're happy to extend your stay at no additional cost and provide a complimentary dinner at our restaurant for the inconvenience." There was a slight hesitation on the other end. "That sounds amazing, but I've got a flight to catch tomorrow afternoon. I need the room until 2 p.m., not before." Olivia immediately saw her opportunity. "I completely understand, Mr. Clark. In fact, we'll accommodate your late checkout request and even send a complimentary breakfast to your room as a token of appreciation for making this adjustment. It's our way of ensuring your experience here is as smooth as possible." There was a moment of silence before Mr. Clark replied, "Well, I suppose I can make the switch. If you're really offering all that, it sounds like a fair deal." "Fantastic," Olivia said with relief. "I'll send someone up immediately to assist with your move. Thank you for your cooperation, and we'll ensure everything is handled smoothly." After finishing the call, Olivia breathed a sigh of relief. She had secured the room Mrs. Martin had requested at least for the evening. She quickly alerted the staff to prepare the suite and sent a bellboy to assist with the transfer. Now, all that remained was to tell Mrs. Martin that her room would soon be available. A tense confrontation, Olivia returned to the lobby with a renewed sense of determination. She walked up to Mrs. Martin's table, where the woman sat with her young daughter, Meyer. The child was playing with a small toy in her hands, seemingly unaware of the tension in the air. Helena, however, was staring straight ahead, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. Her demeanor was cold, and Olivia could feel the sharpness in her gaze the moment she approached. "Mrs. Martin," Olivia began, her voice calm, but with an underlying firmness. "I've spoken with our staff and worked out a solution for you. We've arranged for a suite with a city skyline view to be available in just a few moments. It's the room you requested, and we've taken every step to ensure that it meets your expectations." For a split second, Mrs. Martin's face softened, but only just. "Really?" she said, her voice still tinged with suspicion. "I must say, I wasn't expecting that. But how do I know this won't be another disappointment?" Olivia maintained eye contact, her voice steady. "I completely understand your hesitation. Please allow me to personally escort you to your new room. We'll ensure that every detail is taken care of, and we'll make it up to you for the inconvenience." Mrs. Martin stood up, her gaze still sharp. "Very well, but this better be worth it." Olivia motioned for Mrs. Martin to follow her. As they walked toward the elevator, Olivia could feel her anxiety rising. She was about to lead one of the most demanding guests through the halls of the hotel and hoped she had done enough to resolve the situation. This was the moment that would either solidify her standing as a manager or turn into a full-blown catastrophe. The room transference, they arrived at the new suite. Olivia opened the door and stepped aside to let Mrs. Martin enter. The city lights stretched out before them, casting a beautiful glow across the skyline. The room was elegant, exactly as promised, a spacious suite with plush furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows that provided an uninterrupted view of the city. Olivia watched Mrs. Martin closely as she stepped inside. For a moment, there was silence. Olivia couldn't tell if Mrs. Martin was inspecting the room with disappointment or approval. She held her breath as Mrs. Martin walked over to the window, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Finally, Mrs. Martin turned, a slight nod of approval on her face. "This is better," Mrs. Martin said, her tone still cautious. "But it's not enough. You'll need to make sure the rest of my stay is flawless. I expect no further hiccups." Ms. Wright. And if anything else goes wrong, I will not hesitate to take this matter to higher authorities. Olivia felt a small pang of relief, but knew better than to relax completely. She knew this was just one battle won, not the war. Still, she nodded. Of course, Mrs. Martin. I assure you, everything will be perfect for the remainder of your stay. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do to make your visit more comfortable. Mrs. Martin offered a terse smile before turning toward her daughter. Meyer, let's get settled in, she said, her tone softening slightly for the child. I'll let you explore the room in a moment. Olivia took this as her cue to exit. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out to me directly, she said, giving Mrs. Martin one last, respectful nod before stepping out of the room. As the door clicked shut behind her, Olivia leaned against the wall for a moment, closing her eyes. She had made it through this round, but there was still so much left to do. The night wasn't over yet, and she could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She couldn't afford any more mistakes. The pressure mounts ***. Olivia made her way back to the front desk, her mind still racing from the recent confrontation. She had barely managed to prevent Mrs. Martin from storming out of the hotel, but the situation had only been temporarily diffused. The guests in the lobby, who had witnessed the earlier scene, were now scattered, some giving Olivia curious glances, others seeming to be caught in the murmurs of whispered conversations. As Olivia walked past, she heard the soft click of the elevator doors closing behind her, followed by a deep breath of relief. The situation was far from over, but she had done what she could. Mrs. Martin's initial anger had been calmed, and Olivia had made it clear that the hotel was committed to providing the best possible service. Still, the tension lingered. There was a deep pit of uncertainty in her stomach. Back at the front desk, Daniel, the bellhop, was organizing some incoming luggage. His face brightened when he saw Olivia approach, but the smile faltered slightly when he noticed the tension in her expression. "Everything okay, Ms. Wright?" he asked, his voice tentative. Olivia gave him a tight smile and nodded. "It's fine. Just another day at the office," she replied, though her tone didn't match her words. "But I need you to keep an eye on things. I don't want any further incidents. If Mrs. Martin requests anything, let me know immediately." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You don't want to talk to her first?" Olivia shook her head. "No, I've done enough for now. Just make sure everything is running smoothly. The last thing I need is another escalation." With a final nod, Olivia turned her attention back to the front desk. The hotel was buzzing with activity, but her mind wasn't on the incoming guests or the details of the night's reservations. All she could think about was how much was riding on her handling of Mrs. Martin's situation. If she didn't maintain the hotel's reputation, she could very well lose her position as manager. As the evening dragged on, Olivia tried her best to stay composed. She assisted a few other guests, handled their inquiries, and took care of minor complaints, all the while keeping an eye on the clock. She needed to ensure that everything remained perfect for Mrs. Martin's stay, but her nerves were starting to wear thin. The phone on the desk rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. She quickly picked it up. "Rewel Oaks Hotel. Olivia Wright speaking. How can I assist you?" The voice on the other end was cool, formal, and unmistakable. "Ms. Wright, this is Mrs. Martin. I trust my request for a late dinner reservation has been handled." Olivia felt a small flicker of panic, but quickly regained her composure. "Yes, Mrs. Martin. I've already made arrangements for your reservation at the restaurant. Your table will be ready at 8:30 p.m. Good. And please ensure that the wine selection is up to my standards. I do not tolerate subpar service." Olivia's fingers clenched round the receiver. "Absolutely, Mrs. Martin. I'll make sure everything is perfect. You'll have the best available selection, as always." "Good. And one more thing," Mrs. Martin continued, her voice laced with a threat that was hard to ignore. "I expect an apology from you tomorrow. A formal one. I am not pleased with how this situation has been handled, and I'll be making sure that the upper management knows about your handling of things. Olivia's stomach dropped. She had hoped that Mrs. Martin might be satisfied with the room change, but now she was asking for something far more formal. Something that could be used as leverage. Understood, Mrs. Martin? Olivia replied, keeping her voice calm despite the churn of panic inside her. I'll make sure you receive an apology in the morning. Is there anything else I can assist you with tonight? Mrs. Martin paused for a moment before responding. No, that will be all for now. The line went dead, and Olivia was left staring at the receiver in her hand, the weight of the conversation settling heavily on her shoulders. She slowly set the phone down and exhaled, trying to calm her racing thoughts. A formal apology. Olivia had always prided herself on her professionalism. But now, the idea of offering an apology felt like an admission of defeat. She couldn't allow this to spiral out of control. ******, the tension builds, *****. Olivia glanced at the clock. 8 p.m. Mrs. Martin would soon be heading to the restaurant for dinner, and Olivia needed to make sure everything was in order. She quickly instructed the host at the restaurant to prepare the best table for Mrs. Martin and ensure that every detail met her standards. Olivia wasn't taking any chances. As she finished reviewing some final details, her assistant manager, Derek, approached with a concerned look on his face. Olivia, can we talk for a minute? Derek asked, his voice hesitant. Olivia looked up, forcing a smile despite the tension in her shoulders. Of course. What's on your mind? Derek glanced round to make sure no one was nearby, and then lowered his voice. I've been hearing some things. Some of the other staff are talking about the incident with Mrs. Martin. They're worried about what might happen next. Olivia felt a pang of frustration. She had expected her staff to be professional, but now it seemed like the rumors were already starting to spread. What are they saying? She asked, keeping her tone steady. They're just concerned, Derek continued. They know how demanding Mrs. Martin can be, and they're worried that if you don't smooth things over, it could affect the hotel's reputation. Some of them think it might even affect your position here if things get worse. Olivia felt the weight of Derek's words. She had already been under so much pressure, and now the staff was starting to doubt her ability to handle the situation. She had to regain control, not just for her own career, but for the hotel's reputation. I'll handle it, she said firmly. Just make sure the rest of the night runs smoothly. If anyone approaches you with concerns, tell them not to worry. I'll make sure Mrs. Martin is satisfied. Derek nodded, but didn't seem completely reassured. All right, but just know that people are watching. You've got a lot of eyes on you tonight. Olivia gave a tight smile and nodded in return, though inside, her anxiety was starting to eat away at her. She couldn't afford any more mistakes. ******, a disastrous dinner **** at 8:30 p.m. Olivia received a call from the restaurant. It was the host. Ms. Wright, I'm afraid we have a problem, the host said, his voice tense. What happened? Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't anticipated another issue. Mrs. Martin has refused to sit at the table we prepared for her. She insists that the lighting is too dim and the placement of the flowers is all wrong. Olivia's mind raced. How could this be happening? She had already instructed the staff to ensure that every detail was perfect. Send someone over to adjust the lighting and replace the flowers. Make sure she gets exactly what she wants. This is critical. Understood? The host replied, though Olivia could tell that he was worried about how much more Mrs. Martin would demand. As Olivia hung up the phone, she took a moment to gather her thoughts. It was becoming clear that Mrs. Martin was not going to be easily satisfied. This wasn't just about a room or a table, it was about asserting control, about reminding Olivia and everyone else around her who had the power. Olivia knew that she couldn't afford to back down. If she did, Mrs. Martin would have the upper hand, and the fallout could be far worse than just an uncomfortable dinner. She needed to regain control, and she needed to do it quickly. Under pressure ****, the evening was slipping away, and Olivia could feel the weight of the hotel's reputation on her shoulders. Every decision she made felt critical. Mrs. Martin was no longer just a guest. She was the person who could make or break Olivia's career, the hotel's standing in the community, and the future of the property itself. She had already demanded so much now. With the dinner problems escalating, Olivia knew that time was running out. If she didn't fix things quickly, the situation could go from bad to worse. She paced back and forth in her office, reviewing the events of the evening. Mrs. Martin had been upset from the moment she arrived, and although Olivia had managed to appease her momentarily with a room change, things were clearly not improving. The request for a formal apology had thrown Olivia off balance. She had never had a guest demand such a thing before. She had always believed that showing empathy and solving the problem at hand was enough. But Mrs. Martin seemed determined to get a personal admission of fault, which made Olivia feel like she had already lost control of the situation. She couldn't afford to let Mrs. Martin walk out with any lingering frustration. She had to prove that she was capable of managing the hotel's high expectations, no matter how unreasonable they seemed. Olivia picked up the phone and dialed the restaurant again, hoping to catch a break. "Good evening, Ms. Wright," the restaurant manager answered, his voice calm but strained. "How can I assist you? Is everything okay with Mrs. Martin's dinner?" Olivia asked, her voice firm, but tinged with concern. "We've managed to adjust the lighting to her preference, and the flowers have been replaced," the manager said, clearly relieved to report some progress. "But she's still not happy with the seating arrangement. She says she feels too close to another guest. We've asked her to wait while we prepare another table, but she's getting impatient." Olivia closed her eyes, frustrated. This was exactly what she had feared. No matter how much effort she put into solving the problem, it was never enough. "Tell her we'll arrange something immediately and offer her another bottle of wine on the house. Make it clear that we're doing everything we can." "Understood. I'll get on it right away." Olivia sat back in her chair and rubbed her temples. Every solution seemed to fuel Mrs. Martin's anger, and Olivia wasn't sure how much more she could handle. Her mind flashed back to Derek's earlier words about how the staff was beginning to lose faith in her. She had always prided herself on being a problem solver, but this time, she felt like the walls were closing in around her. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the feeling that Mrs. Martin was winning. But Olivia couldn't afford to let her emotions control the situation. She had to stay calm, focused, and professional. The hotel's reputation was on the line, and it was her job to ensure that nothing went wrong. She could still save the evening, but she would need to push herself beyond what she thought was possible. She stood up, grabbed her jacket from the back of her chair, and walked out of her office. The hotel lobby was quieter now, with fewer guests around, but Olivia still felt the energy of the place pressing against her. The team was doing their best, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of tension in the air. As she crossed the lobby to the restaurant, she checked her watch at 4:45 p.m. There was still time to fix this. She had to make Mrs. Martin see that the hotel was taking her complaints seriously, that every effort was being made to make her stay perfect. But first, she needed to face the woman who had caused so much chaos. *******, the final attempt *****. When Olivia arrived at the restaurant, she walked to the hostess stand and saw the MacD standing with a concerned look on his face. "Ms. Wright," he said, his voice low. "Mrs. Martin is still very upset. She's asked for you to come speak with her directly. She insists on an explanation, and she's requested that you meet her at her table immediately." Olivia hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath. She knew this conversation would be difficult, but it was the only way forward. She nodded at the MacD, who led her through the dining room toward the back corner, where Mrs. Martin sat, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. The atmosphere in the restaurant was thick with tension, and several nearby diners were stealing glances in their direction. As Olivia approached, Mrs. Martin didn't even look up. She simply gestured toward the chair across from her, her face expressionless. "Sit down, Ms. Wright," she said in a clipped tone. Olivia did as she was told, lowering herself into the chair across from Mrs. Martin. The restaurant staff had clearly been walking on eggshells around the table, trying to avoid further escalation. Mrs. Martin was not one to tolerate mistakes, and it seemed like she was determined to make this situation as uncomfortable as possible for everyone involved. "I want to understand something, Ms. Wright," Mrs. Martin began, her tone cold. "Why is it that, in a hotel of your supposed caliber, I'm being treated like this? You've been here long enough. You must know how important my business is to this establishment. I don't appreciate being told that my request cannot be fulfilled, especially when I'm a regular guest. What does that say about your hotel's ability to deliver?" Olivia's throat tightened. She had expected this, but hearing it come out of Mrs. Martin's mouth felt like a direct challenge to her competence. She had no choice but to respond, and she had to do it carefully. "I completely understand your frustration, Mrs. Martin," Olivia said, keeping her voice steady. "We have worked hard to make sure everything is perfect for your stay, and I take full responsibility for the mistake in your room assignment. We did everything we could to find a suitable solution. However, I acknowledge that the situation is not ideal, and for that, I sincerely apologize." Mrs. Martin raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "I don't want your apology, Ms. Wright. I want you to understand what this experience has cost me. The next time I book a stay, I expect nothing short of perfection, and that includes the respect of the staff, the quality of service, and the commitment to meeting every expectation. Right now, I feel like I've been dismissed, like my requests don't matter." Olivia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "I can assure you that your requests do matter, and while we can't change what has already happened, we are doing everything in our power to make the rest of your stay as comfortable as possible. I'll personally ensure that your dinner is perfect, and I'll be following up with you tomorrow to make sure you're completely satisfied." Mrs. Martin sat back, her arms still crossed, but for the first time that evening, her expression softened slightly. "I'll hold you to that, Ms. Wright. I expect an apology in writing by noon tomorrow, and don't make me regret this decision." Olivia nodded. "I understand. I'll personally see to it." As Olivia stood up to leave, Mrs. Martin glanced at her daughter, who was quietly eating a dessert at the side of the table. The soft hum of the restaurant seemed to fade away as Olivia stepped away, but her mind was already spinning with thoughts of what had just happened. This wasn't over, far from it. The hardest part was yet to come. The full-out back in the hotel's office. Olivia sat down at her desk and began typing the apology letter that Mrs. Martin had demanded. It felt like a form of capitulation, acknowledging her failure, admitting to the hotel's shortcomings. But at the same time, Olivia knew it was necessary. She couldn't afford to allow this incident to grow any further. Every word had to be perfect. Every sentence had to convey her commitment to making things right. She could feel the pressure mounting with every keystroke. She had already given Mrs. Martin everything she could: an upgraded room, free meals, the assurance that the issue would be handled. But it wasn't enough. Mrs. Martin had power, and Olivia had to learn how to navigate that power without losing everything she had worked for. As she finished the letter, Olivia glanced at the clock. It was nearly 10 p.m. The evening had taken its toll. She knew she would need to get some rest, but sleep seemed like a distant prospect. Her mind was racing, thinking of what might come next, of the fallout that could rise from Mrs. Martin's complaint. But there was one thing Olivia was sure of. She had done her best. She had given her all to resolve the situation, and now she had to hope that it would be enough. The breaking point following morning, Olivia arrived at the hotel early. Despite having stayed late the night before, she had barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying every moment of her interaction with Mrs. Martin in her head. What had she missed? Was there something else she could have done to prevent the escalation? She had followed all the protocols, made every effort to accommodate the difficult guest, But deep down, she could feel that it wasn't enough. As she entered the front lobby, she was greeted by Daniel, who looked at her with a knowing expression. "Morning, Ms. Wright. Everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Olivia gave him a strained smile. "I'll be fine, Daniel. Thank you for asking. Can you make sure everything is running smoothly this morning? Mrs. Martin will want to meet with me before long." Daniel nodded and quickly returned to his duties. But Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She had always been confident in her abilities. But the pressure from Mrs. Martin's complaint, combined with her team's growing concern, was starting to weigh on her. She sat down at her desk, gathering her thoughts, and then opened her laptop. She read over the apology letter she had drafted the night before. It was polite and professional, but it didn't feel like enough. She needed to ensure that Mrs. Martin understood how deeply she regretted the situation, and that her team would go above and beyond to make it right. Before she could finalize the letter, Olivia heard the unmistakable sound of high heels clicking on the marble floor. She looked up to see Mrs. Martin approaching, her expression as cold and calculated as ever. Olivia immediately stood up, her heart racing. "Good morning, Mrs. Martin," Olivia said, her voice steady, at least with apprehension. "Thank you for meeting with me this morning. I trust you had a restful night." Mrs. Martin's gaze swept across the lobby, taking in the surroundings before she spoke. "Not particularly restful, Ms. Wright, but I'll make do. I trust you have the letter I requested." Olivia nodded, reaching for the letter she had drafted the night before. "Yes, Mrs. Martin, here it is." She handed the letter over, and Mrs. Martin took it, reading it quickly before setting it down on the counter with a dismissive gesture. "This is adequate," Mrs. Martin said, her voice still cold. "But it's not enough. I expected something more heartfelt, Ms. Wright. You should have known that an apology alone wouldn't make up for the experience I had. I'm not here to read some generic letter of apology. I want to see action." Olivia's heart sank. She had braced herself for criticism, but it was hard to hear it so openly. Mrs. Martin was clearly disappointed, and Olivia's mind raced. "What more would you like from us, Mrs. Martin?" Olivia asked carefully, trying not to sound defensive. "I've already arranged for the upgrades, and we've made accommodations to meet your needs. What can I do to resolve this situation?" Mrs. Martin's sharp gaze fixed on Olivia, and she took a step closer, her voice dropping low enough for only Olivia to hear. "What you've done so far is simply not enough, Ms. Wright. Your staff was unprofessional, and I was made to feel like my concerns didn't matter. I've been loyal to this hotel for years, and yet I'm treated like an afterthought. Do you think this is just about a room or a meal? No. This is about respect. This is about you proving that you can deliver what I expect from a 5-star hotel." Olivia stood frozen for a moment, the weight of Mrs. Martin's words hanging heavily in the air. She could feel herself at the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, one mistake, and this would spiral out of control. But Olivia knew that the only way to survive this was to rise to the occasion, to show Mrs. Martin that she was in control, and that she could handle even the most difficult situations. "I understand, Mrs. Martin," Olivia said quietly, her voice steady and calm. "I apologize again for how things have gone, and I will do everything in my power to make sure your stay is absolutely flawless from this moment forward. We value your loyalty, and I will personally oversee everything to ensure that you're treated with the respect and professionalism you deserve." Mrs. Martin regarded her for a moment, her eyes narrowing. "I want a more substantial gesture. I want you to offer me something tangible, something that shows I matter to this hotel. If I don't see a significant improvement in your service, I will be forced to reconsider my relationship with this establishment, and I won't hesitate to spread the word about the poor experience I've each had here." Olivia felt the tension in the air, and for the first time that morning, she allowed herself a deep breath. She wasn't going to back down. She had already been as accommodating as possible, and now it was time to step up and show Mrs. Martin that Olivia Wright wasn't someone who could be pushed around. "I understand, Mrs. Martin," Olivia said again, her voice firm but respectful. "I'll take immediate action. I'll personally ensure that your experience from here out meets the highest standards. And I'll make sure our team works to meet every expectation you have. Please allow me the opportunity to demonstrate how much we value your business." Mrs. Martin tilted her head slightly, a small glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. "I'll be waiting, Ms. Wright. Let's see if you can live up to your promises." As Mrs. Martin turned and walked away, Olivia could feel the weight of her gaze on her back. There was no going back now. She had no choice but to ensure that Mrs. Martin's stay was nothing short of perfect. ************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* Her mind already formulating a strategy to fix the situation. She had no time to waste. There were too many moving pieces, and if she didn't handle them quickly and decisively, the damage could be permanent. The first step was to meet with the restaurant staff. She needed to make sure the dining experience for Mrs. Martin was flawless. No more mistakes. She would personally oversee everything, ensuring that the food, service, and ambience were nothing short of perfect. Next, she would work with the housekeeping team to ensure that Mrs. Martin's suite was exactly as she had requested. No detail would be overlooked. Everything had to be perfect. But there was one more thing that Olivia knew she had to do. She had to show Mrs. Martin that she was committed to making things right. It wasn't just about offering free upgrades or comfy meals, it was about making a real, tangible gesture that would demonstrate the hotel's commitment to service excellence. Olivia spent the next few hours coordinating with the various teams, giving specific instructions to each department to ensure that Mrs. Martin's needs were met. She ordered the finest bottle of wine to be sent to Mrs. Martin's suite, along with a handwritten note of apology from her. Olivia knew that sometimes a personal touch was the best way to show genuine care and respect. As she worked through the details, Olivia began to feel a sense of control returning. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. She was no longer just reacting to the situation, she was taking charge, and she would prove to Mrs. Martin and to herself that she was more than capable of managing the hotel's high standards. By the time Mrs. Martin returned to the hotel later that afternoon, Olivia was ready. She had done everything she could to ensure the evening would go smoothly. All she could do now was wait for Mrs. Martin's reaction. **********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************� lobby. Her demeanor still cold, but Olivia could sense a shift. She had done what she could now. It was time to see if it would be enough. As Mrs. Martin walked toward her, Olivia stood up, offering a respectful nod. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Martin," Olivia said, her voice calm and composed. "I trust everything is to your satisfaction now." Mrs. Martin looked at her for a moment before speaking, her voice still measured, but noticeably softer than before. "Well, Ms. Wright, I'll admit this is more like the service I expected. The wine was a nice touch, and the room has been perfect. I appreciate your efforts to fix the situation." Olivia's heart lifted slightly, but she remained composed. "I'm glad to hear that, Mrs. Martin. If there's anything else you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly." Mrs. Martin paused for a moment, studying Olivia. Then, without saying anything further, she nodded and turned to leave. As Olivia watched her walk away, she felt a deep sense of relief wash over her. The storm had passed, and she had weathered it. Mrs. Martin was satisfied for now, but Olivia knew that the next challenge was just round the corner. Resolution and reflection. The days following Mrs. Martin's departure were a blur for Olivia. The tension in the hotel had begun to settle, but it hadn't entirely disappeared. Every employee she passed in the halls seemed to look at her with a mix of respect and caution. While Olivia had successfully navigated the storm with Mrs. Martin, she was keenly aware that her actions had set a precedent. The hotel's reputation and her own credibility had been on the line, and the fallout could still be far-reaching. But for the moment, she allowed herself a brief respite. Mrs. Martin had left a final note in Olivia's inbox thanking her for the effort she had put into making things right. It wasn't the glowing praise Olivia had hoped for, but it was better than nothing. She had managed to salvage the relationship, and perhaps, in time, Mrs. Martin would become a loyal guest once again. A new challenge despite the temporary relief. Olivia knew the pressure wasn't over. The hotel was in the midst of a busy season, and there would always be more demanding guests, more conflicts to manage. Olivia's task was never truly finished. It was an ongoing cycle of problem solving and damage control. She had to be vigilant, prepared for whatever came her way. That afternoon, as Olivia was walking down the corridor to inspect the newly renovated floor of the hotel, her assistant manager, Derek, called her phone. "Ms. Wright, I've just received a call from corporate," Derek said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "They want a meeting with you." Now, Olivia stopped in her tracks. "What is this about?" "I'm not sure," Derek replied, "but it sounds serious. Corporate mentioned they want a report on everything that happened with Mrs. Martin. They want a detailed account of how we handled the situation, and they're asking for you to explain what actions you took." A knot formed in Olivia's stomach. Corporate had already been aware of the issue, but now it seemed like they were bringing her in for a more formal discussion. She had expected this, but the reality of it felt like another hurdle she wasn't sure she was ready for. "I'll head to the office right away," Olivia said, her voice firm. She walked quickly toward her office, her mind spinning. She knew she had acted as best as she could in the situation. But how would corporate perceive her handling of the issue? Would they be satisfied with her approach? Or would they see her actions as a failure? The corporate meeting. When Olivia arrived at the corporate office, she was escorted into a conference room where two senior executives from corporate were waiting. Jenna, the corporate liaison, sat at the head of the table with a clipboard in front of her, while Greg, the regional director, was on her right. Both of them were impeccably dressed and had the air of people who had seen it all. "Ms. Wright, thank you for joining us on short notice," Jenna began, her tone polite but businesslike. "We've reviewed the situation with Mrs. Martin, and we wanted to hear from you directly about how things were handled." Olivia nodded. Sitting down at the table, she could feel her palms start to sweat, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I did everything I could to resolve the situation, Jenner. I personally managed Mrs. Martin's concerns, upgraded her room, and offered her additional services to make up for the initial mistake. I made sure that her needs were met and followed up with her throughout her stay." Greg leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "We've heard that you've taken several steps to make her comfortable, Ms. Wright. But here's the issue. We've received feedback that the incident wasn't handled as efficiently as it could have been. There are concerns that the situation escalated unnecessarily. Some staff members were worried about how the situation was managed, and that led to some tension among the team." Olivia swallowed hard. She had expected some of the staff to voice concerns, but hearing it directly from corporate felt different. She had always prided herself on handling tough situations with grace, but now she was starting to wonder if she had missed something. "I understand the concerns," Olivia said, her voice steady, but with a slight edge of defensiveness. "I acted quickly to resolve the issue, and while it wasn't ideal, I don't believe the situation escalated beyond control. Mrs. Martin is an incredibly demanding guest, and her expectations are extremely high. I did my best to meet them." Jenna glanced at Greg before returning her gaze to Olivia. "We appreciate your efforts, Ms. Wright, but we believe that a bit more proactive management could have prevented things from escalating." Mrs. Martin's status within the city's elite circles made her a sensitive case. "We need managers who can handle difficult guests before things go too far." Olivia nodded, taking the criticism in stride. "I understand, and I'm committed to improving my handling of such situations in the future. I'll make sure to communicate more effectively with both the team and the guests to prevent further issues." Jenna's expression softened slightly. "We don't want this to be a black mark on your record, Ms. Wright. However, we want to make sure that all of our managers are constantly learning from their experiences. We'll be monitoring how you manage future situations. Your ability to handle difficult clients is key to this role, and we need you to lead by example. Greg added, we're confident you can improve, but this is something we'll have to keep an eye on. We expect better results moving forward. Olivia felt the weight of their words sink in. It wasn't a glowing review, but at least it wasn't a complete failure. She had been given a chance to learn and improve. Thank you for the feedback, Olivia said, her voice measured. I will continue to do my best to meet the expectations of the hotel and corporate, and I'll make sure to use this experience as a learning opportunity. ******* a new beginning ***** after the meeting. Olivia walked back to her office, her mind whirring with everything that had just been discussed. The corporate executives had been direct but fair. They weren't firing her, they weren't taking drastic measures. They were giving her an opportunity to prove herself. She spent the next few hours reflecting on the feedback. As much as she wanted to brush it off as an unfortunate circumstance, she couldn't ignore the fact that she had learned something valuable from the experience. Handling difficult customers required more than just solving problems. It required leadership, foresight, and a level of proactive communication that Olivia had missed in the heat of the moment. She also realized something important about herself. The pressure of being in charge was immense, but she wasn't in it alone. She had a team to rely on. Moving forward, Olivia knew she needed to foster stronger communication with her staff and corporate to ensure she had all the tools she needed to succeed. Later that evening, Olivia received a message from Derek, her assistant manager, who sent a simple, yet meaningful note. ***, you handled Mrs. Martin's situation with grace. The team respects you more than you think. ***. The words were small, but they lifted Olivia's spirits more than she had expected. As the days passed, Olivia continued to implement the changes she had learned from the incident. She worked closely with her team, encouraging open communication and proactive problem solving. She also focused on improving her relationships with corporate, ensuring that she was always one step ahead when it came to managing difficult situations. By the time the next VIP guest arrived at the hotel, Olivia was ready. She had learned from her mistakes and was prepared to face whatever challenges came her way. Her ability to lead had been tested, but now Olivia knew that she was stronger and more capable than ever before. She had earned her place as the hotel's manager, and she wasn't about to let anyone, no matter how powerful, take that from her.